love making day, love spending day. I heard a statistic this morning, not about how much love making happens on this day, but something about babies born, like, whatever, 40 weeks after this. $26 billion spent on and around today. $26 billion. Chocolates, flowers, shenanigans, all manner of nonsense spent on this. I only bring it up to say, when we talk about spending, we talk about how much money things cost. We, say like they're going to spend $12 billion on bridges. Yeah, and $7 billion on potato chips, and $26 billion on chocolates, flowers, and happy Love Day. But happy Love Day to all of us. Did you gentlemen deliver any love greeting?
Well, the day is young, so I've got a full working day before Katie gets home to acquire some things.
Head over to Trader Joe's, and they have a great little supply over there.
Yeah.
$5 flowers.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day to you. And
hey,
are
you say with an M?
Well, I'm the father of an 8-year-old, and that means two things. One is having to endure the word Valentine's, and two, giving Valentines to kids at school.
Every single kid in your kid's class. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Whimsy really wanted to give ring pop Valentines to the 24 other students in her class. And so we went by the neighborhood market, which is a Walmart branded grocery store. And it's basically just the grocery section of Walmart. It's really kind of awesome. So we go into the neighborhood market and we're picking up some things. And hey, there's boxes of ring pop Valentines ready to go. Perfect. Excellent. Wow. Guess how many are in the box?
22.
22.
You gotta buy 2 of those giant boxes.
I had to buy 2 boxes. I now have like 8 to
20. We don't do math well around here, but that one we can nail.
She dropped one in the cat bowl and the cat's water bowl, and ate another one. So I had to buy. So I've got like 18 ring pops downstairs.
If there are not pictures of you with ring pops on all fingers holding them up in Instagram photos, you are missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So then the other thing that happens with Valentine's Day in elementary school is that as the kids bring their Valentines to school, they need a box to bring them home in.
Of course.
Whimsy decided that she wanted her box to be decorated, as many of the kids do. And she wanted her box to be a taco cat. And let me tell you, if you want to follow me on Instagram or Facebook or even Twitter, I'll put it up there on Twitter too. I will post the picture of Whimsy's taco cat Valentine's box.
That's awesome.
Made by her and her mother, and I might even include her like drawing the designs for Taco Cat. It's really impressive. So that's really we're at the age where that's the fun stuff that's happening around Valentine's Day here in our house. Vanessa and I are going to go out for lunch later, and that's about it.
Well, happy Valentine's Day. Hey, a little gem inside of there was this big project for Whimsy to create a Taco Cat box that, as we heard, her and her mother did. And then you're going to post a picture of it on Instagram. That is a well-played Valentine's Day, my friend. Well done.
The picture I'm going to post has already been posted by her mother. So
okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that's great. Somehow you avoided that because you said, hey, I had to go and endure the purchase of 2 boxes of ring pops, right? That was the divide and conquer. How about you, Dan? What'd you got?
My 9-year-old picked out the, I forget what you even call it. It's like a stick that's made of sugar.
Fun dip.
You dip into the powdered sugar. So it's just like pure cocaine for children.
Quality. That is a quality candy right there.
But then we had exactly the right number for class, and one of my other sons ate one.
No.
Go back to the store to get a whole nother batch. So we've got extra fun dip.
Well, let me tell you why I personally approve of this draconian requirement of teachers that every kid gets one. Take yourself back to the early 1970s in a little elementary school called Meadowbrook Elementary School in a sleepy little town called Golden Valley.
Childhood trauma.
Oh, I can't wait for the story.
Before they told children that you got to bring a Valentine for everyone, we had Valentine's little bags that would hang on the wall, have everyone's names on it, and the kids would make Valentines and put them in there, and then you'd gather them up over the course of the day.
Getting the tissues
in
out.
The day you'd go home. So I went and grabbed my Valentine's Day bag. There was one Valentine in it from the teacher, and that's it. And that's it.
Oh, bless your little heart.
Not a Valentine.
That's rough.
Not a one. Now,
you clearly, though, were not the only kid that happened to, hence the rule change. Like, this is just devastating for the morale of our students. We got to stop this.
When the wave of shame and grief overwhelms you, you can only see yourself in those moments. I have no idea if anyone else didn't get any Valentines.
Wow.
But I'll say back then, it wasn't, you didn't bring treats. And I'm actually surprised in this day and age that you guys can bring sugary store-bought treats for Valentine's Day. That just, I don't know. That surprises me. Back then, though, they were just like hand-drawn little cards, and maybe those sweet tarts with the words on them, but it was very minimal.
Would we call those sweet?
What are those things called? Are they not sweet tarts?
I'm not sure.
The little baby ones, that say hugs or I miss you or be mine or.
Yeah. Hey Dan, check your text. Maybe you could throw up a picture of Taco Cat on the.
This was Taco Cat. Hey, you've been hearing from Robb Ryerse.
There you go. Look at that.
That's actually incredible. That's next level.
What? Lord. Oh, wow.
Because it is a Tuesday. It's a Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is that a taco made out of a cat? I think eating cat. I get it. People do it, Rob, but I just think it's inappropriate. I don't think you should have cat meat in your tacos.
It was funny. Whimsy said at one point, "Mom, are we going to put legs on Taco Cat?" And Vanessa said, "No." Taco Cat will be just fine.
That is just incredible. A paper mache cat head. Very cool. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Jim, in the chat. Hey, Rob is outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas, the home of Walmart, which is why the local shop is Walmart. And Dan is in Michigan. I'm in Minneapolis. So happy greetings to all of you in all the places. We'll talk about lots of things happening. Some just in the last week in the world of politics that influence us. We'll take this opportunity to remind you that at Vote Common Good, we have a love in politics pledge that we ask for voters to take, that they're going to be committed to living their way of love, even in the voting booth and the people that they choose to elect. So if that's interesting to you, head over to votecommongood.com and look at the Love in Politics pledge. On no other day is it, as on point as our February 14th Love Day. Also Big Flower Day. So anyone owning flower shops, clearly not listening to this, but if you know someone who owns a flower shop, today's a tough day for them. I mean, sure, it's maybe the day when they break even for their business, but it's a whole lot of work. All right. So, hey, let's talk back a week or so. There was the State of the Union, and we haven't talked on this podcast since then, on this topic at least. Yeah. Boy, it was a raucous deal. We all went into it a week ago saying like, okay, State of the Unions are only so much. I had a little dream of what I thought it was going to be, that the president would say like, hey, there's more things than politics and government. Rob, you were worried that it was going to be too boring. We all made a bet on how long it was going to be. Dan, I think you may have nailed it almost to the minute. I didn't do the exact number, but it was incredible. I think 87 minutes or something. No, I had 87 minutes.
72.
72 minutes. Just about nailed it. But it turned out to be, I thought, a great State of the Union speech. I haven't been a big fan of turning this thing into, the English Parliament, but when the Republicans decided to get all South Florida about it, like we're at the beach bar yelling and screaming and taunting, I thought old President Biden really handled that. Really took care of business. Like he seems to be someone who, for his personality and age, will take a time to banter and to spar verbally with people that he may have some disagreements with.
Yeah, he well, number one, he's not intimidated by anybody. He has been around the block, he's seen it all, and he just has this, he gives off this vibe of like, yeah, like you don't scare me,
Right.
And that's really powerful. Whether he is, sharp and witty or, quick-witted, whatever it might be, whatever he lacks in that, he makes up for in just pure moxie. And I like that. I think, I don't know. The Republicans were just, downright embarrassing. And part of me wanted to feel bad for Kevin McCarthy sitting behind Joe Biden. But I just couldn't help myself from, having a little Schadenfreude, about his predicament as he sat up there trying to shush his members. Felt like, I've been, I don't know if you have the experience of being a pastor's kid. You maybe experienced in part what was happening there. I've had the experience of sitting in church and messing around and getting a look from my dad sitting on the stage, sitting behind the pulpit, and because he could see me messing around, screwing around, and getting that look of like, "Oh, I better shape up." Or even worse was getting the look down the pew from my mom. You knew then that you were in big trouble. And watching Kevin McCarthy trying to give that look, in our family we call it the Pauline look, named after my grandmother. Trying to give the Pauline look to his members, to tell them, like, just knock it off. Like, just stop now. We'll talk about this later. And they just ignored him. And over and over and over again, he tries to shush them and they just keep right on. And if he wasn't such a, just kind of a, I don't know, repulsive is maybe too strong of a word. He's just, I find him, I don't have the adjective yet for what I think about Kevin McCarthy. Swarmy, I don't know what it is. But watching him squirm with embarrassment as
was pleasant.
His members embarrassed him and he had no control over them. Glorious.
Well, yeah, and that's a great sort of picture of what was going on. The difference is these were not 8-year-olds sitting in a church meeting. These are duly elected representatives of their constituents to the federal government sitting in a joint session of Congress. Yes. The idea that somebody has to conjure up the narrative of a scolding parent or of a school marm shaking their finger at the bad behavior of children is the whole thing, right? Like, go ahead, Republicans. But there's a thing in the Republican Party, and I have a number of friends that I'm in touch with a lot who are deeply embedded in that stuff. They saw all of those antics as positive things, right?
Yes,
There's
features, not
just
flaws,
enough
I would say.
people who see that as super positive. So I think it's just a real decision point. Now, what I thought was interesting is following the State of the Union, your governor there in Arkansas gave the rebuttal to it, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I'm still not clear if she wanted to be governor or not, she made this comment that it's time for new leadership in the Republican Party. I don't have the quote quite right, but basically her argument was it's the difference not between conservatives and not conservatives. It's between like the crazies and the not crazies. She's putting herself in the not crazies category. Fair enough. Who doesn't? But that's interesting that inside the Republican Party, it shows that this argument about we can't keep going down the road of the wackadoodles is real. It's not just podcast people like us and commentators and social progressives that are saying these things. It's actually true inside the party, and that I think is a really interesting take on all this.
Yeah,
you're this meme from the State of the Union. It's the like the angry woman shouting at the cat, and then it's side by side with Marjorie Taylor Greene in her white fur coat. Like, what is
Wasn't
that
she
even?
dressing as the Chinese balloon? Wasn't that what the people were saying she was trying to do? She was trying to mock him with wearing a Chinese spy balloon outfit. Is that not true? Was that just a joke that I misread? That could be.
I thought it had White Witch from Narnia energy for me. Listen, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We watched that closely, and immediately after her speech, hit send on an email announcing another little project I'm involved in called Vortex Pack with Dr. Chris Jones to do some work here in Arkansas. So if you're interested, check out vortexpack.com. So I was watching Sarah Huckabee Sanders very closely and cared deeply about what she had to say. There's a couple of things. I think one of the phrases that I've noticed, Sarah Huckabee Sanders used it. Chris Sununu, who's going to announce that he's running for president, used it. Nikki Haley, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who announced that she's running for president, used it. It's the phrase generational change.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be, I think, as much as the crazy versus normal, dichotomy. I think there's a crop of Republican leaders who are looking at two things. One, they're looking at Joe Biden and saying, okay, we have the opportunity to exploit something here with a youth and vitality image versus, kind of old and doddering Grandpa Joe. And at the same time, that argument works not just against Joe Biden, it also works against Donald Trump.
For sure.
And so, I think that phrase is going to be key throughout this next election. The fact that I've seen it in multiple places now makes me think that there's a concerted effort. There's a real intentional branding of this. And I think that the other thing it indicates to me is I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders is not running to be vice president for Donald Trump. I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders is running to be vice president for Ron DeSantis. And I think that she is, giving herself the opportunity to, bring the MAGA crowd over to Ron DeSantis, which, shouldn't be terribly difficult, regardless about that former guy, truthing out pictures of Ron DeSantis partying with teenage girls when he was a high school teacher. Besides, all that. So beyond that, the content of Sarah Huckabee's speech was terrifying and predictable, and but right in the complete when she said, we didn't ask for a culture war, they brought the culture war to us. I mean, it was just just so infuriatingly dishonest.
Could not stomach it.
Yes, it was really. Well, all the best to you. Look, the Republicans are getting themselves together. I think you're exactly right on this, that they can bank shot both at Trump and at Biden with the generational thing. It's a big deal. It conjures up the 1992 presidential campaign, even back to 1990, 1991, with Clinton and Gore coming in as young, generational, don't stop thinking about tomorrow, Fleetwood Mac listening people back when that was young and hipful, and the older incumbent president, all of that. That's powerful for the United States of America, because elections are always about the future. They're not about the past. They're not even about the present. So it's a real thing. And, we will have plenty of time to talk about if Joe Biden is going to announce his candidacy for the presidency of the United States, or if he will say, I will not seek and I will not accept your nomination for president. But we can talk a little bit about Nikki Haley. She's running now. Now we're starting to get a little list. Look, Nikki Haley said, if Donald Trump runs, I won't run. And now she's running. So that's great news, right? I feel like, I wanted to start a website back in 2018 when before we started Vote Common Good, called Everybody Runs, that wanted everyone in the United States to register to run for president, with the idea being any one of us would be better than Donald Trump, right? Literally elect anyone. It's all of us versus him. I kind of feel that way for any legitimate Republican at this point, and any of them. I get the arguments. I hear them all the time. I think Ron DeSantis is more dangerous. I think, so-and-so is more dangerous than Donald Trump because at least he's competent. No. Donald Trump, in my view, is still a singularly dangerous character on the public scene, dangerous for the United States as a person. Now, I'm not being personal about him. I'm saying him as the candidate, the way he will be, because it's the way he is today and the way he was. It's clear how he's going to be. Uniquely problematic. And ideally, to beat him in a general election where, again, 70 or 80 million people can say no, feels really great. Good enough. But it also would be wonderful if he was rejected in his own hometown. And if the Republicans said no to him in this next election. But again, I think he will be charged with a crime that will involve him negotiating a plea deal that will say that he won't ever seek public office again, and it's not going to be an issue. I think that's still. I'm still holding out to that little theory, which feels like it's drifting away. All right.
Drifting away like
things flying in the sky.
I was going to say drifting away like a spy balloon.
Yeah. Nikki Haley is really in a tough position. She is an ideal candidate for a Republican Party of the past, a pre-Donald Trump Republican Party. She is an ideal candidate. Former governor of South Carolina, former United Nations ambassador. I mean, a woman of color. She is an ideal candidate. She is well spoken. She is poised. But she is really she has put herself in a difficult spot because she's tried to be a both and kind of person when it comes to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And she has been on his team as a part of his administration, and she has tried to criticize him, and none of it seems authentic. It always feels like she is either compromising in some way or overcompensating with the bluster. Like, her her quote that came out today about, she here it is, from a presidential video or launch video. You should know this about me. I don't put up with bullies, and when you kick back, it hurts them more if you're wearing heels. That's a really clever line, but it also points out the fact that, like, what about Donald Trump?
The bully in chief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you didn't kick back when you were a part of his administration, and every time you've tried, it's been, I don't know, while you got one foot up in the air trying to get him with the heel, like your other foot in the heels has been a little bit wobbly, and like this thing isn't landing hard. I don't know. I think that Nikki Haley she's one of these, like, could have been, like, should have been.
Sure.
In an ideal world, somebody else wins the Republican nomination in 2016, and Nikki Haley is the vice president. Like, that's what should have happened, not this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. She does not. She's not the MAGA alternative to Trump that Ron DeSantis is. She's not the never Trump alternative that some Republicans are looking for.
Yes,
She's this wishy-washy thing in the middle. And, like Jesus said, you spit the lukewarm water out of your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I mean, her comment about, it hurts worse when you kick them with heels. Maybe. I don't know. But, as a real leader, what about the sensible flats? Don't they just make a lot more sense just to wear a good pair of stable, solid shoes with all the work you have to do? I mean, now she's going to be the candidate in heels, which I think is really cutesy and clever, and also just so, classic. That's what makes me a woman candidate, is that I wear heels. I think that stuff is just, they have a lot of struggles on the Republican Party side. So do Democrats, right? The majority of Americans and the majority of people in both parties don't want Donald Trump to run for president, and they don't want Joe Biden to run for re-election. That's a difficult spot, right? And I don't think that's going to stop Joe Biden from announcing his candidacy. And I think that feels, after the State of the Union, more settled than ever, that's what we're facing. And I'm guessing he's not going to shake up, his campaign by not having Kamala Harris. So I don't think there's going to be any changes on that front. It's just going to be can we get a refill? When you're at the table and you ask for another basket of chips. So you're just going to do the same thing again. So of course the Republicans and the cultural commentators are all over Biden, and they really want to be on him about these crafts that are flying in the air. I'm trying to describe the things that are flying in the air that are being shot down by the military and not say a word that would cause YouTube again to think that we're spreading conspiracy theories. So there are vehicles flying in the air, and the government is saying we're not sure where they're from, but now they're comfortable shooting them down because apparently shooting down something the size of a car is not going to hurt anyone. We're shooting down something the size of a bus would clearly have landed on scores of people all across the country. But they're comfortable shooting those things down over Alaska and over the Antarctic and all the rest of it. It's going to keep happening. And Lake Huron,
yeah,
sure. Not right too far from Dan.
Couldn't there be people in boats out there? Yeah, I mean, who knows? People, I heard a commentator, a news person, not a commentator, having to talk about this and saying, when they shot down the UFOs in the sky, and then the host of the radio show said to the reporter, how do you like reporting that? He goes, oh, I love it so much that I get to say these things. I get to talk about the government not wanting to tell us what the unidentified flying objects are that they've shot down out of the sky. Like, it is, for a lot of people, the fulfillment of what they're like. I'm telling you, these things have been up there a long time. We've all been seeing them. We've been reporting them. Remember a year ago or 2 years ago or something, when the military started releasing the reports of the number of pilots who said
videos of it.
Yeah, it's just, right down the middle of, the word that we can't say on this podcast because YouTube will, treat us badly. But these kinds of theories that people tell of things that I think are causing a lot of people a great level of excitement. But for some reason, the Biden administration is choosing not to talk about these things, which is stirring up its own speculation and its own worry. And I think that's really curious, why the administration is not taking the lead and comfortable making it seem as if they're secretive or non-responsive about any of this stuff, whether it was the spy balloon or these other drones that are being taken on. And it's clearly a talking point in conservative circles.
Yeah, I've heard that criticism that Biden isn't talking about it, or whatever, but I also saw a press conference from the White House press secretary talking about it. So what level of talk would be sufficient for people?
Well, that's the critique, right? When you have your press secretary talk about it and you don't, people are like, that's noticeable. Or they send out John Kirby to talk about it, the Pentagon-related spokesperson. That's what they're getting at. They're like, no, they're talking about it, but every time Biden is with the press, he won't answer the question, like he's not making a presidential address. Maybe it doesn't rise to the level, and they should just say that. Like, look, the president has a lot of things. We got this under control. We don't. But there's a way this is being messaged that is not, like, it didn't come up in the State of the Union. I literally heard more about buying hearing aids at pharmacies than we heard about this or what we're going to do about changing our immigration policy. So sometimes presidents are extremely articulate about certain things and then not about others. And it's that contrast that's quite noticeable. So for some reason, they don't want Biden on video talking about these things. I think that's sort of interesting. I don't know why. I know that if you go deep into the longer analysis of this, there's real arguments in the U.S. government between the Pentagon and the CIA, because the intelligence agencies have known about the spy balloons and they knew about these flying crafts, but they didn't tell the Department of Defense. And the Department of Defense is now trying to figure out, how did one of our agencies know about it and we didn't? That's its own internal battle that Congress is now looking into, and the Department of Defense is trying to figure out. So there's things going on in all of this about what parts of the government know about these things. And when the intelligence agencies are the ones that are like, yeah, we can tell you about the balloons that were flying over the U.S. in 2018 and in 2020 and 2023, they know about them. That tells you that all of this stuff is in another part of the government that is about countries looking in on each other and spying on each other, and so it's in a different space. And I wonder if that's why I think Republicans might know that, so they're poking at Biden on because the press secretary might not know what Biden knows, right? So he doesn't want to be talking about things he knows about and not talking about them. That's different than someone who's like, literally, I don't know any of that stuff. So this could all be what's happening here. And I think most interestingly about all these crafts flying in the sky, it's a little window into what goes on in the intelligence agencies of not only the United States but other countries. There is so very much that's happening. I don't know if you know who John Kirby is, but John Kirby is the spokesman for the Department of Defense and the special envoy communications person. So anyway, he kind of talks about this stuff. And he said, look, we have extreme capabilities to know what's going on in other countries. Like, we know why they've put these things up. We are not unaware of these things. It was just interesting as a subplot to the whole.
Well, and we're probably floating our own little crafts over every other country. Like, that's what's sort of funny. Like, how dare they float a balloon over us? Like, really? We're not. Totally. Like, this is just part of the game of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But what are these things? What is this car-sized cylinder over Alaska? What is this octagonal thing that has no propulsion, observable propulsion, that jet fighter pilots are saying that their navigation equipment was messed with as they got close to it? Like, what are these? Like, what is this stuff? What is it? What's your best theory on what it is, Doug?
Well, I think it's sophisticated military equipment that of which the makeup is kept secret. This is super secret stuff. Look, and this is why they're not just shooting these things down over land. I know they're saying we didn't want it to fall on someone. They want to put it in a safe spot where ain't no one going to get their hands on this stuff. This is really important intelligence that they're trying to track and to watch and keep an eye on, and only going to try to secure it in certain places. And this, story that we have up is they found a significant amount of debris from the one that's out in the ocean off of North Carolina. I think what all of this is the kind, and I'm not saying it's not anything. It's secrets that are supposed to be secret, right? Like there's things that the Chinese government does they don't want to tell people about. There's things that the U.S. government does that we don't want people to know about. It's meant to stay away from public view. That's what I think. I think there's a lot of capabilities of flying things and a lot of ways of flying things that they never talk about. These stealth kinds of vehicles that are up in the sky, especially, they're all versions of drones of some variety, right? But these kinds of drones that we don't know anything about in the popular culture.
What do you think?
That's what I think it is.
Oh, I don't know. I don't really like. It's sort of interesting, but I don't.
Oh,
really just don't care that much.
Really?
I don't know.
Well, Rob, you have a very leading question. What do you think it is? You think it's
I have no idea. I have no idea. I am totally intrigued by the people that are, absolutely in on the alien narrative here.
I don't think it's that.
Yeah, you would have that sense that if there was some civilization somewhere out in the universe that was able to create a craft that could travel into our planet's atmosphere, it feels like that wouldn't be something that would be easy to shoot down.
Yeah, you think?
I don't know, but maybe they're peaceful and they don't think about those things. I don't know.
And if you figure that NORAD, the Northern Command, joint project between Canada and the U.S. is going to shoot a couple of those down, they're not going to tell us if they're pretty sure those things are from civilizations off of this sphere.
Yes, the only time I ever want to hear about NORAD is when they're tracking Santa Claus. Now, I really like what Jim
didn't
just
even know
posted.
they were real. Yep.
What Jim just posted in the comments, that these things are from the future.
Yeah, we're just in a time warp. That's all it is. Yeah.
Look, we're living in the future, and none of this has happened yet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a Bruce Springsteen line. You quote the Bruce Springsteen line. It's a good line.
I am.
That's a deep cut right there. Appreciate that.
Deep cut.
Hey, I did get a little meme from one of my super conservative friends. And remember that Trump balloon that they flew with Trump's big blown up body? This little meme was, if I were Trump, I'd be flying this thing over Beijing tomorrow. That's actually hilarious, right? Yeah. You were to fly a Trump balloon. I thought that was quite clever. But look, on a more sad note, a number of things have befelled our planet. A major earthquake in Turkey, in Syria. I don't know what the numbers are now. I heard
35,000 people, which just sounds unbelievable.
Just heart-stopping. Killed in a moment. Just the devastation of that, and these buildings were not supposed to collapse, and so just all the pain, all the heartache, all the tragedy. I also heard that in the Ukraine war, that the unfair assault of Russia on Ukraine. Ukrainians don't like people call it the Ukraine war. They're like, it's not our war. They're attacking us. It's a Ukrainian defense. That the statistics are more than 1,000 Russian soldiers are dying per day. Per day. Apparently, in 1 week, more Russian soldiers will die than U.S. soldiers died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Total.
Wow. Jeez.
in 1 week. The numbers are through the roof and just unbelievably devastating. Like that war that's been going on for more than a year is just so horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that gets layered into the shootings in the United States, which we want to spend some time with, which is the
I mean,
State
even
University
before
shooting this time.
Yeah, even before we talk about Michigan State, let's not forget what's happening in Ohio and the train derailment that happened in Ohio that has been described as like the equivalent of like a nuclear bomb going off, and
Right.
reports of dead animals, dead pets, and because of the chemicals that have escaped into the atmosphere, the devastation that I've seen the word Chernobyl thrown around many times in describing this of what's happening in East Palestine, Ohio, but that won't stay there because as these chemicals head up into the atmosphere and then get delivered other places through falling rain, it is there's wow. And there's a lot of political stuff that goes along with this. There was a reporter trying to ask questions of the Ohio governor, Mike DeWine, who was arrested, and arrested, and the video that shows him being arrested, it's just like, why in the world is he being arrested? Like there was no provocation at all. And so
you're saying the person asking the questions of the governor about this was then arrested?
Yeah.
Thrown on the ground, handcuffed behind the back, arrested, and carried off.
Reporter. Really troubling things. You couple that then with the railway union and their threats to strike and how the Biden administration dealt with that. And then you get this sense of like, well, wait a minute, like what is that tied in with this? Where they, some people have said that they were, this is what the unions were trying to warn us about. It's just really, really troubling. The environmental and threats to life that are coming about as a result of this. And, you just layer on these things. And then, I was laying in bed last night, with Vanessa watching some TV and checked my phone for a minute and said, there's an active shooter in Lansing at Michigan State. And just heart-wrenching news to hear.
Yep. And some of these, I saw some reports, some of the college-age students at Michigan State University were in high schools where there were also shootings and killings. So now you have some of these same kids who have not only had to learn active shooter response in high school, now in college. And maybe you saw the news coverage that there was a message sent out, to the students and faculty on the campus that said, run, hide, or fight. That they have this three-word phrase that the kind of trauma that we now just accept as, well, that's what you have to do because, people are going to do these things.
What else can we do?
Like the most base level of all this. And look, there's a lot of arguments we can all make about how you're going to solve this. A lot of legislation that should be passed, 70%, 80%, 90% support for background checks. I think all those things should happen. My own opinion is those are not going to solve these problems. Most of the shooters could have gotten guns. The problem, and mental health isn't, in my view, the problem is there's too many lethal weapons available to too many people. And the thing that makes the United States different than all the other industrialized world is the amount of guns that are available and the access to the most deadly weapons. That's the thing that's different. Not mental health issues. They don't seem to be on a different scale, other than the number of mass shootings that are happening might indicate that there's more mental illness in the United States and other places. So someone could make that argument. But the thing that seems like you could respond to it is we should do something about this. But there's no appetite, even in the Democratic Party, to push really hard to reduce the lethality, the access to lethal weapons, especially what are often referred to, as these military style weapons that can just fire so quickly. I don't know in Michigan State if they've said yet what kind of weapon was used. For some people that doesn't matter. For other people it really matters. I'm in the category of it really matters. Like, I think that's a part of the entire shooter culture. Once you do some work on who these people are and how does somebody end up being a shooter, there's a kind of narrative that's formed that's centered around the weapons. Some of you might know that I went into the NRA building in May at their big convention and walked on the floor and the demonstration floor and saw all of the stuff and all of the guns and talked to people, and they were all over. And in order to do that, I had to pay a fee to get in. That fee then meant that I'm on the mailing list for the National Rifle Association. So for the last 6 months, I've been receiving the National Rifle Association magazine, which concerns me a little bit about what my postal carrier might think about me, but I'm trying to, leave that aside. Flipping through that magazine, the color, multi-page magazine that comes out once a month from the NRA, if you're unfamiliar with that document, it will tell you a lot about the culture way of thinking that goes on with these in this subset of people that are big into guns and photos with guns and rifles and stock, all of it. There's just an entire other world there. Yeah. And you know what it's not? I'll tell you, I don't get this magazine either, but I flip through it sometimes when I'm at airports just to, broaden my perspective. It's not Field and Stream. It's not Hunter's Guide to a Great Fall Outing. These are, I'm not a hunter. I'm not big in hunting, but these are not hunting magazines, the NRA magazine. It is about personal defense and guns that are designed for an individual to use to shoot another individual. That's what it is. And I don't think there's any way to break that cultural grip. Yeah. And it may not have stopped every one of these, but it's got to stop the fact that we have a mass shooting, meaning a shooting where injured or killed more than 4 people in a single incident. That's the when you see big numbers of mass shootings like 67 in 2023 already, that's what they're referring to. 4 or more people injured or killed. You got to believe it can stop some of that, if not all of it.
Yeah. And just this prevalent argument that, well, we need more good guys with guns. That never, that's so rare that there happens to be a good guy with a gun that actually stops an active shooting.
Yes.
A couple weeks ago, it was a young guy with his bare hands that stopped an active shooter. And in this case, it seemed like for hours this guy was just allowed to run around and shoot people.
Yeah.
Where were the good guys with guns?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about, this happened in Lansing, Michigan, which is the capital of Michigan. And I used to live 45 minutes north of there and would, shop in Lansing quite a bit. I think about Governor Whitmer and, as we think about kind of the trauma, I mean, this is a state that has endured some of the most ugly backlashes against mask wearing and the pandemic and the quarantining associated with the pandemic. This is one of those areas that had the plot to kidnap and kill the governor of Michigan, and now this. It's just I feel for the people of this area. It's Lansing has been, as a city, has been a real flashpoint in a number of the things that have happened over the last couple of years, and to have this layered on top of that is really it's really tough.
Yeah. It's and the sad thing is, we just know that it's an incident in a line of incidents that have already taken place, and any reasonable person should be pretty certain it's not the end of the line. There will be another action that will look strangely similar and predictable enough that it seems like we could and should be doing more about it. But it has been woven now into the fabric, like automobile deaths, to be just grim about the whole thing, right? We have decided as a society, cars are about as safe as we're willing to make them. People are going to die in automobile accidents. The number is really high. Per car minute on the road, it's not so high. But there's just a number we've decided, like, okay, that's about right. We're not going to do other things to make cars, to make highways more safe. You could do a lot of things to make highways more safe, right? You could put speed limits down to 25 miles an hour. There's a whole set of things. You can
widen lanes,
space between cars. There's a whole bunch of things. We're not doing any of those things because we've decided
that we can tolerate a certain
amount. That's where we are on guns. Yeah. Basically, we've decided there is no group that's not going to be targeted by gun violence. It's clear we're through all of it, from politicians to children,
to churches,
everybody's targeted,
to movie theaters. Yeah.
And we've decided as a society, tolerable level. And part of it being tolerable is we have a grief narrative that we go through. Yeah. And different people grieve it differently. And we have a whole thing, and we have a public response to these events, and people are now learning how, but it's like, hey, this is just what's going to happen. And I just want to ask the fundamental question. I think we should ask it of gun owners and of non-gun supporters all. Are we happy saying this is the acceptable amount of carnage from this and death? And the answer for a lot of people is yes. So then we have to say that and just have the argument with that as the given, right? Yeah. I find it not to be an acceptable amount, so I want to shake my fist at it. And I think we could all be, the sort of Ralph Naders of the 1970s saying the number of people dying in cars doesn't have to be as high. Let's do seatbelts, or then later with the airbags, let's do airbags, and maybe somewhere that number is going to come down. But the 67 mass shootings where 4 or more people are killed or injured in a single incident, just in the 45 days that we've had since they've been doing count of 2023, is a lot. And look, some of that's just shootings on streets, with handguns and other things. There's a number of those. We had one of those here in Minneapolis. A couple of people shot and killed, and high school kids shooting and killing, 1 killed and 3 injured. And it gets listed as that mass shooting, and it was connected to a lot of, other kinds of violence. So it's not all AR-15 style combat, design look-alike weapons and all this. But that sure seems like a place you could make a big advancement. But we've baked it in, and it's just heartbreaking.
And the immediate, those killed and wounded, and those loved ones of those victims, those are the immediate impact, the immediate trauma. But the lasting trauma is societal. It's like our kids having to do these lockdown drills, and then we've had this thing in our school district where students are swatting the schools, quote unquote swatting. So they'll call in a threat, and then police show up. They have to lock down the school. It is viewed as an active threat. It's not a training situation. Freaks everyone out, students, teachers. And then, it turns out it was, a false alarm, or an intentional false alarm.
Yeah, a prank.
Yeah. But you have this generation growing up where that is the norm, to be afraid for your life in school.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to also worry about, doing good on your math test. And
yeah. And look, we just incorporate these things in. I think when I was a kid, the Vietnam War was going on, and then was a little older, had just ended. I've now kind of looked back, and I'm like, oh, the period of time, like from 1976 to 1944. So that, like, 32 years seemed like a really long time ago to me as a kid. But now that I'm the age that I am now, I'm like, Okay, 32 years isn't all that long, right? Like we can go back. That those traumas from even World War II and then the Korean War and then the Vietnam War were just alive and well. So what did we do as kids in our swimming pool? I lived in this great apartment complex. We had a swimming pool in the middle of the parking lot. All the kids went out there, had a diving board. It was just reckless and fancy free. Well, what did we play going off the diving board? A game called Kamikaze. Kamikaze is where you jumped off the diving board into someone in the water, right? Like you'd land on like a cannonball landing on the kids. And I'm like, what games were we playing? Cannonball, Kamikaze, and board games called Battleship. I took a little 3-year-old grandson. We stopped and got chicken and nuggets as a real little special deal with his babu.
Chicken and nuggets or chicken nuggets?
Chicken and nuggets for him. He's adorable. He's 3. And the little game inside the Happy Meal? Freaking Battleship. Now, I get it. It should just be innocuous. No big deal. And I'm like, honestly, let's just slide this one aside. I don't think you need to be playing games about blowing up ships. This commitment to war. These are the cultural things, Dan, to your point about trauma, that get built into our society. And what's built into our society now? Person-on-person gun violence. I'm not saying it's created by first-person shooter video games. I'm just saying it's all part of the cultural milieu that now is normative for these kids, the way war narratives have been for previous generations. But now that war has come to the streets, and we just tolerate it and just move along without some cultural consideration enough of the time to say, hey, maybe we should pause for a minute and not let kids just normalize around certain things. Let's call it war and gun violence. Let's just take those things off the cultural norming narratives. Well, that's clearly not what's up.
Yep.
Yep. And these are the larger things. No, there is no policy you're going to pass. I get it. Yes, no single bill passed by Congress or by House is going to solve this. But they all become little little tiles in the larger mosaic of a different way. At least on February 14th, we could say, love.
Yeah,
love. Yeah.
What's love got to do with it?
Multitude of solutions.
Yeah. Well, I have no answers. But
good luck on getting some red roses today.
Yeah.
By the way, I know they're still tough to come by.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Try
Happy
to make
Taco
the world
Cat
a
Tuesday.
little better while you're out there.
Yeah. Just do your part, and it's not too much to ask. But may we all just stop killing each other. It seems like a really great thing.
Yeah.